What are the benefits of using an area expert when buying and selling your home? Please welcome Realtor from Halcyon Real Estate Services, Cynthia Elizondo, and Loan Officer from Cornerstone Mortgage Group, Rsidley.
All right, welcome to the show.
Thank
First timers on the program.
Yes.
Great to have you both here, Rick and Cynthia. We're going to talk today. The subject here is really about should you use an area expert. This is something that has come up a lot in real estate over the course of the last, I would say, few years, 3-4 years. The area expert. A lot of agents are picking certain areas and really focusing on those areas and wanting to become the area expert. But there are a lot of agents. San Diego County is huge that sell properties all over the place. So, Rick, let's start with you from the mortgage side. As a loan officer, what do you think about this subject?
I think that having someone that knows the area is such an advantage to you as a home buyer or seller, because they're dialed into what who's looking for, the type of people that are looking for properties in that area. From a mortgage perspective, it's great too, because we can cater to their needs within that community, and we know what's going on. We know values are going to come in, and it all works.
Okay, so you think that's a smart thing for home buyers and home sellers to be looking into. Cynthia?
I totally agree. I think that it's very important to know the area specific to where you're looking as well as what you're selling. Case in point, I recently visited on Caravan, touring the homes on just come up for sale. I talked to the listing agent on one of the homes, and she was talking about how things weren't selling. It wasn't, she wasn't getting the activity that she expected, and I said, well, that's probably because of what's going on on the golf course. And she looked at me like I was crazy. Like, what are you talking about? She had no idea that the golf course was about to go away and that they were going to start developing the area. So that beautiful view was about to go away. How would somebody know that if they didn't know the area?
And that was a listing agent.
Someone who had a
listing. And that's right. So for me on this one, I'm split a little bit. I think if you're buying in an area, you have to use an agent that specializes in that area, because they'll know things like that. They'll be able to protect you from buying that house, and that is going to lose its view, or that is just on one road over from where it's really worth a lot more, or you never buy south of this road, or don't, like there's certain things like that. That the local area expert will know, and as a buyer, you need to know that. I think if you're a seller, I think it's less important, although it still could behoove a lot of sellers. I think it's less important if you're selling your home to use an area expert, because a lot of times the buyer isn't going to come from that area. Now, sometimes it does, but sometimes it doesn't. And sometimes what we've noticed is that the area expert on listings can get really narrow about, well, I know this area, this is what that's worth. And sometimes in up markets like this, the person who's coming from outside and saying, no, we can get more, gets it. And that happens. So not all agents are created equal, as you both well know. So having a great agent is really important. I think first and foremost, have a great agent. But absolutely, in my opinion, if you're buying in an area, you had best be using an area expert, or you'll lose your view.
But on the listing side too, it's important to have somebody that knows everything that needs to be disclosed. For instance, I live in a neighborhood that has polybutylene plumbing. If the seller doesn't know that they need to disclose that, they could get into trouble later on if the listing agent doesn't tell them, you need to disclose this. Because they may not know that it's important. They know that they have it, but they don't know that they have to disclose it. So it's important to have a listing agent that knows everything about the home as well as to the neighborhood and the area and the transaction.
Yeah. Absolutely. No, you can always make a case for using the area expert in real estate, I think. But what I'm saying is that if you're buying, you absolutely have to.
Absolutely.
You can't not. You'll make a mistake. I mean, it's just too easy to make a mistake with that. Like for example, that poor listing agent had no idea about what was going on with the golf course. If she had been representing a buyer. Okay. Now think about that.
That could get ugly.
Look, this is beautiful. That could get really ugly, right? I mean, lawsuits could come up down the road on something like that, and no one wants to be involved in anything like that. So I think that it's something to definitely consider. But now let's define it, because this is a really loose interpretation. Like a lot of people are running around saying, I'm this expert, I'm the Rancho Bernardo expert, I'm the Escondido expert, I'm the beach expert. So how do you actually know if they are the expert in that local area?
I recently had a client call me. It was a young client looking to buy in downtown area. I'm not from downtown, so he asked me, how well do you know the downtown area? And he quizzed me, and he actually made me prove that I know the downtown area well enough. He ended up using me. He got a great property for a great price.
Okay, so in this case, you think just ask the right questions.
Ask the right questions.
Ask the right questions.
Okay,
yeah.
make sure that they know what they're doing.
Interview. Don't just assume.
Is there a certain number of sales in the area you should expect in the last 12 months or anything like that? A lot of people are on Zillow, they're looking up these things, and they're kind of trying to figure out for themselves if someone's an area expert or whatever, that maybe they don't want to ask questions. So we found that, a lot of times consumers, they don't want to ask questions.
Right.
They want to do research online and find all the answers there. So for people like that, is there any kind of benchmark that we should give them and say, hey, this is kind of the minimum amount?
I don't know that there's necessarily a minimum amount of transactions that a person needs to have completed in a certain area, but rather has demonstrated a knowledge of the area or has lived in the area. I mean, if somebody lives in the area, maybe they've only been an agent for 3 years, but they've lived there for 20, they can probably still be considered an area expert.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. So look at how much time they spend there.
Right.
Yeah. Could be a good one. Do they live there?
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Do their kids go to school there? Do they know the kindergarten teacher?
Well, and it's amazing what you learn from one transaction when you work in a new area. Even just one. That's the hard part there.
Yeah.
Is if you take your job seriously and you get after it and you're going to sell a home in a new area and your buyer knows that and they're willing to still work with you, because that happens too.
Yeah.
You're going to learn about it. And once you learn about it, things change somewhat, but not a lot. If you do your job well, you're going to do it well the next time too.
Yeah.
So I don't know about a minimum number.
Yeah.
It
Depends
on the agent. Right.
It's a shallow way of looking at it, but just a lot of the buyers out there,
right.
they just don't want to talk about it anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
They just want to look online and
Right.
get all their answers there. Another thing you guys want to talk about, because this is something that has come up. So there's discount brokerages out there, big sort of what we call big box real estate companies, for which this doesn't exist.
Right.
So you can't really get an area expert. You might luck upon something, but you can't even request a certain agent, right? You have to just use whoever's in the queue.
Right.
And the question, I guess, is does that diminish their overall objective in the marketplace if they really can never represent an area expert?
Well, I guess in our opinion, based on our conversation and how our approach has been so far in this conversation, yes. Any good real estate agent can do a good job for you, right? If they're good at what they do. But the advantage of working with someone is what we're talking about. The advantage of working with someone who's familiar with the area. It doesn't mean they couldn't do a good job. It just means, in my opinion, that you're going to get a better job from someone who is an expert in that area.
Cynthia, I don't want you to bite your tongue on this one.
To me, it's just another level of expertise. An agent in the big box brokerages, they know their business too. They can probably get you through the transaction. But if you have that extra level of expertise in the area, then you're just going to get that much better service, and you're going to get more specifically what you want for the price you want it.
Make sure you keep your view.
Yeah. Well, you're working to help them make the largest purchase they'll ever make, probably in their lifetime, right? And so work with someone you trust, work with someone who's an expert in the area, work with someone who you've spent some time with to build that trust. That's who we end up helping. Ultimately, me too. Always me. I'm the money side of things, and I don't close a transaction with someone that doesn't trust I'm doing a good job for them. Otherwise, they just go elsewhere, and that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
And that's actually another good point. Is it's also important to have a lender who knows the area as well. Using a big box lender who doesn't know even the whole San Diego market isn't going to be able to get you the loan that you need, as well as a lender who really does know that local market.
Yeah, it definitely makes a difference.
And
especially when you're talking about
one that works well with the agent.
Right, that's important. Also understanding, the guidelines for different things. People are buying FHA, VA. What are the compatibility issues? What are the the requirements for the properties, what are things that will fly, things that won't fly with the appraisal and all that stuff. You miss a lot of that with the big box lending, which I would never recommend anyone go down that road. The bait and switch looks great, but this is switch is the part that sucks. And the lack of expertise obviously is a big deal, but I think this is something that people are looking into more and more now. It's something they're hearing about more, and unfortunately the big box doesn't really offer this. So if you are, I say you can't go wrong. You're buying or selling a home with an area expert, you can't go wrong, and if you don't, it's a little bit of a roll of the dice.
Amen.
And you might lose your view. And we don't want to see that happen. Guys, thank you so much for coming in today. Rick and Cynthia,
Thank you
guys are
very much
amazing.
for having us.
Fantastic topic. Stick around for more Smarter San Diego TV, where we guarantee to make you smarter than everyone else. Commercial free.